Good afternoon on what is a cold, chilly and grey day. It is a balmy 3 degrees here on Saturday the 17th of December, and I'm in the reading up with a nice hot cup of tea. Yeah. And a cat who is not ours, and a big parcel to unbox. So let's get this open. Okay. What I have got here is a copy of Everybody Wins, 4 decades of the greatest board games ever by James Wallis. James Wallis, you will recognise as a games designer and basically the owner and publisher for Hogshead Publishing during the 90s. Who also basically also other role-playing games like Alas Las Vegas or Alas Las Vegas. This is, and he's also written another book. He wrote another really good book on board games as well, with in Livingstone 100 basically like 100 different board games. The definitive history of the modern board game, it promises, and so far it's all about the hexes on the cover. This is published by Aconyte. Ever wondered when board games got so good? And that's an interesting question, because really, if you think about it, we have been in an age of great board games and great board games for the past 30 years. Or is it longer? I mean, certainly with the advent of things like Settlers of Catan, which broke through in the 90s and then into the noughties, board games become a really popular pastime, and board games have become really good in their play and their design, and those board games are available on the shelves, not just at your local friendly gaming store, but at your local store. So you can. I was at Gen Con in 2022, was basically last August, and we went into a Walmart. And there were board games I would expect to see on the shelves at my local gaming store, on the shelves there. And then if you go into places like here in the UK, you would sort of like to Waterstones, bookshops like Waterstones, and then John Lewis. So things like Jaws and Horrified are all really good well-designed board games that are making it onto the shelves. Anyway, so the question comes back to, ever wondered when board games got so good? The last 40 years have seen nothing short of a revolution in the world of tabletop games. No longer synonymous with family arguments over a game of Monopoly or Trivial Pursuit, board games and the once niche hobby of tabletop gaming have moved into the mainstream over the last 4 decades, with modern classics like Catan, formerly Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne becoming established household names. In this informative and entertaining tone, this revolution in tabletop gaming is revealed and reviewed by one of the most knowledgeable commentators there is. James Wallis explores the evolving world of board games through the lens of the Spiel Jahres, Germany's prestigious Game of the Year award, looking at a host of past winners catapulted to worldwide popularity, once lauded games now sadly forgotten, and a few popular hits that somehow missed out. Alongside this, Wallis expertly chronicles the increasing sophistication in the design of modern board games and their ever-growing variety. Everybody Wins is a book for anyone who loves games, wonders what all the fuss is about, or just wants to know what to play next. The essential, hugely readable study of modern board games. So, essentially, this is going to be, essentially part history book, part a coffee table book, I think. So let's have a look. So it's a little bit difficult to leaf through because of its size, and acknowledge there. And the thing is, I've sort of been aware of James Wallis's sort of efforts to track down all of the winners and of the Spiel Jahres awards over the years. Didn't know he was writing this book, but I'm not surprised that he is. So here we've got the contents page. Oh. introduction, and then go. It's a picture of the author playing board games with his family and losing, and then we've got a picture there, the board game Senate, and then we kind of go up to date with a list of sort of like recent winners, explanation of the Jahres, the winner, Spiel Jahres there, and then sort of the opening moves really looks at the explosion of games sort of like beginning in the 70s, and you really have to be quite careful when you go back to those days looking for good games. There aren't many, but there are some classics if you look for them. And then we open up with the first title, Hare and Tortoise, which has been reprinted multiple times, which won in 1979. So you've got a couple of pages, 2 or 3 pages on the game, including a nice illustration at the front, and this is going to follow the same format and so on. And again, so many of these board games are still in print. Hare and Tortoise, Rummikub, which I've never actually played. Focus, I don't know, I've never come across this one. And again, unless you're an actual, historian of board games, you're probably not going to know every game in here. So there's going to be a bit of Revelation as well. Enchanted Forest, again, I've come across that and again never played it. Scotland Yard, that recently got a reprint. Basically, chasing a criminal across London. Railway Rivals, this is a game I do have and have played. Really sort of like, it's one of the first sort of like, arguably it's the first right on, ripe off kind of board games. It, you've got explanations in the corner, like a hex map, looking at its mechanics being outdated, and then of course in the other corner what you've got is a list that does it for the same. You've got the list here of several features about the award for this year, but 1984. So you've got special award, recommended, and so on, all the titles for that year. And then Sherlock Holmes, again, another reprint, because these are all regarded as classics, so they keep coming back in print. And then preface the new next era, Settlers and Co. And this here, this is sort of like, that's clearly a demo copy, an early version, whilst the designer was creating the game, which has sold millions of copies. And here's another game I've not heard of. I'm not going to leaf through all of the book. I'm just going to, because there's so much of it in here. And some of these are going to be very difficult to track down now, I suspect. It's almost a case of, keeping an eye on eBay and then hitting places like Essen, the big board game event the year. Unfortunately, my copy has been damaged. So, leafing through this. Difficult, so I'm just going to leaf through ahead past the damage section. So yeah, this has only just been published. We basically just really got it big launch at Dragon Meet a few weeks ago, and it's very quickly gone out of print. We've got a classic subject there for board games, which is cycling. And the thing is, it's sort of like, that's not much of, to be honest, not much. That's a very European subject, because competitive cycling is really big in Europe. Obviously the Tour de France, and it's been treated, several times with different board games. but it's got more popular now with, of course, coverage of the Tour de France. So, and then we get to Catan, previously known as Settlers Catan, and then we come to the Golden Age, which really picks up after Catan, and there's some classics in here, which are definitely still in print. Tikal, that was my first Gem board game. Still got a copy of there, it's really good. Carcassonne, of course. Carcassonne, there we go. Carcassonne is sort of like one of the core foundation of your board game collection. Never played board game. That beyond the traditional English ones of Scrabble, Monopoly, and Cluedo. Try Carcassonne, and then Ticket to Ride. So, and then we have things like Via Paletti, not a game I kind of like. I don't like. I'm not a particular fan of dexterity games like that. Of course, Alhambra. There's another good starting kind of game, a bit more complex than the Carcassonne, but yeah. And then, of course, classic Ticket to Ride. So yeah, I mean, just going through section by section. And then sort of like beginnings of change. The identity crisis section for of the hobby, and this is really when I was getting involved in playing a lot of board games every weekend and so on. Don't get the chance now these days. But I've got quite a few of these titles. Some I've never played. Some I would love to play. I mean, and just chart that. But Zero Eto is quite a lovely game. But this is at a time when role playing wasn't quite as popular, so I was writing about board games as much, as I was. Role playing games. So Dominion, first deck building game, which is a mechanic which has proliferated. And then Dixit, sort of like kind of conceptual game, not something I necessarily enjoy. So yeah, I mean, El Hanabi, lovely, Corporation in the Dark kind of game, which really plays nicely. Camelot, race game. That didn't get its own second edition, so. Colt Express, which I absolutely adore. It's essentially it's a programmed hidden movement game of interaction with a great theme. And then we move into essentially we come up to date with new purpose, new direction. And again, you've got the sort of like an overview of the period before it comes up to date. With the designs. Like Azul, a game of sort of like building sort of like tile layouts, that sort of thing. And then that's not a game I've actually come across because essentially I'm not playing as many board games. But anyway, this is full of just really nice essays on all of the games. This is one I have looked at, this is quite clever, which is Micro Macro. I've done an unboxing, not a particularly good unboxing, but I've also done a review of that as well. So anyway, and then it is looking at the ones that didn't win. Which I think is a fair thing to look at, because there were games in certain years which perhaps were really influential. For example, Pandemic 2009. Dominion won when Pandemic didn't, I think, as I recall. Anyway, so And that falls under everything else, which I think is kind of a pity, but anyway. So this is also got a good index at the back. So yeah, this is essentially, if you're a board game fan, fan of gaming in general, this is probably a very useful board game to have. Board game book to have on your shelf. Nice reference book, because it's looking back at some of the great designs over the years and the great designs that have won awards. You know, going, oh, I didn't know about that. I'm just going to try that. You know, have I got that in my collection? Is the author right about what about the game? Do I agree with him, and so on. Anyway. Great gift for a board game fan, of course, and of course something and for the board game historian. Anyway, thanks for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, appreciate you taking the time to post those. And last of all, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with a parcel containing a book or game, then please, all of course accompanied by a cat who is not ours, who settled on my lap, and a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the like button, the subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching another unboxing of the Nook. Be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.